So for the past 4 weeks, I have been asking you, or actually offering you, an invitation. I said, in your mind's eye, see yourself receiving this invitation. And the invitation said this: you are cordially invited to let 2017 be the year that you awaken, fully awaken to the life of wonder and beauty that Spirit has in store for you. Right? That was the invitation. Let 2017 be the year. You are cordially invited to let 2017 be the year that you awaken, truly awaken to the life of beauty and wonder that Spirit has in store for you. And then I've asked a question, and the question was this: what would your life be like if you RSVP'd yes to that invitation? And then we took that question a little bit deeper. And we expanded that question by saying, what would your life be like if you RSVP'd yes to being fully present and fully awake to the life you have in any given moment? Fully present and fully awake to who you are, really are, in every given moment. Fully awake and fully present to what brings you joy in this here and now. Fully awake and fully present to the life that you are creating with your thoughts, every thought you think, every word you speak, every feeling you feel. What would your life be like if you RSVP'd yes to being fully awake and fully present to God's grace in your life? What would your life be like if you were fully awake and fully present even in the middle of a wake? And if you recall, last week we talked about that. What we meant was in the middle of a challenge, when your world seems to be rocking and rolling. What if you stayed fully awake? What would that look like? Today, you are going to have a chance to answer that for yourself in an activity that we will do in a little bit. You are going to get a chance to identify what that awakened beingness means for you. We'll get there, but before we get there, I have a couple of things to say, of course. But of course, I have a few things to say, and then we will get there. So I want to back up to set the stage for where we're going to go today. I want to back up to January 8th. And if you were here on January 8th, you'll remember that we looked at the 4 stages of spiritual evolution. We also call them the 4 kingdoms. Anybody have any vague recollection? I know January 8th was so long ago. You have a vague recollection that there are 4 stages of evolution, spiritual evolution, or 4 kingdoms. What's the first one? Who remembers it? Why me or to me? Yeah, it's like, why me is this happening? Someone in first service said it's the Velcro stage. You got Velcro here and Velcro here, and you go, why is this happening to me? Why me? We also call that the mortal stage. We're in our human, just in our human stuff. That's kind of stage 1. And as I said that Sunday, that's kind of not really very awake. We start waking up in the next ones. The second one is, what is it? Thank you. Good job. By me. We learn that we're powerful beings. We learn that we're creative beings, that we're not victims, that we have a say in depending on what's going on in our thoughts and our feelings and out of our mouths. We have a say in our life experiences, and it's we have a lot of power. And so it's by me, or we call that the metaphysician stage. Important stage, not the last one. The next one is what? Through me, God working through me, an awareness that there is a higher intelligence, a higher presence than my own, whatever I can come up with. There's something greater than I am, and it's working through me. We call this the mystic stage. But that's not the last one. There is another one, and that's the one that I want us to look at more deeply today. What is it? It's as me. God as me. There's a subtle difference, but it's big, from God working through me, which suggests God and me, right? And God's working through me. God as me says there is no separation, that there is only oneness. There is only me showing up as God in human expression. Now, we tend, and we also call that the master. we tend to think, and I got this feedback when I gave the talk, we spent the whole time on those 4 areas. A lot of people said, okay, I'm working on, well, I'm still working on buy me, but I'm trying to get out of why me. But then my stretch, my growing edge, or as Hildegard von Bingen, the great Christian mystic of the 12th century, said, the green growing edge of our becoming is the through me. I'm trying to get to through me, to just recognize God through me. The as me stage, that's too much. I can't even, that's like, Christ consciousness and Buddha consciousness, and I'm not there. I can never be there. Well, I would like to erase that idea, release that idea that you can't be there. Because I say, why not? And I say, now's the time. I remember hearing a minister speak at a conference years ago, really prominent minister of a very large New Thought church, who said, it is time we stop talking about what Jesus the Christ did and start doing what he did. That's as me consciousness. That's the place where we live, where we don't believe we are separate. We don't believe in division between God and me or between me and you. We recognize the oneness. And when we're believing in separation, believing in division, we're believing in all sorts of other things, and we're doubting ourselves, and we're angry, and we're judgmental, and all those things that you can work on in Reverend Sherry's class, because she's going to absolutely support the as-me consciousness coming through that vehicle of forgiveness. As I was reading in the Science of Mind textbook, and I'm wanting to find a statement, a quote from Ernest to share with you this morning, I came across this one in the pre-chapter, the very first pre-chapter of the book, called The Thing Itself, page 33. And I swear to you, I have never read this before. Although I have read this pre-chapter many, many, many times. Do you ever have that experience? You have a spiritual book that you're reading, and you read it again, and you're like, okay, that was not in there the first time I read that. They added that. That got every time, right? That got added after I read that the last time. Well, that's how I felt about this paragraph. And a connection got made that I had never made before. So here it is, page 33. Ernest writes, there is that within every individual which partakes of the nature of the universal wholeness and is God. That is the meaning of the word Emmanuel. The meaning of the word Christ. There is that within us which partakes of the nature of the divine being, and since it partakes of the nature of the divine being, we are divine. The phrase, the sentence that just really jumped out at me, that had never jumped out at me before, was, that is the meaning of the word Emmanuel, the meaning of the word Christ. Many years ago, probably 7 or 8, I don't know how many years ago, I was at a conference. And in that conference, we did a white stone ceremony. Were you here on the first Sunday of the year, January 1st, and we did a white stone ceremony in here? A white stone ceremony is when you, through contemplation, identify a new name for yourself, or a quality of God that you're going to emphasize and have be your quality for that period of time. Well, I did that exercise 5, 6, 7, 8, actually it was way more than 5 years ago, probably 8 years ago, at a conference. And I have the stone, right? Here is the stone that I got at that conference. And the word that I wrote on it is so faint, I can barely read it. You, of course, cannot see it. I can barely see it. I had no idea why this name, it's a name, came to me. It's not a name I use, not a word I think about, and yet the word Emmanuel came to me, and it is written right here. And if you come and look at this, you'll see it in very faint, faded Sharpie. On January 1st, this year, when we did our white stone ceremony, I did it as well, and I got the word expansion, which is all very colorful because it's brand new, and I even wrote it a couple of times. So for me, this is my personal epiphany for the moment, is I feel like I've married my two worlds, or at least my two white stones have come together. The 2017 for me is my expansion into my Emmanuel consciousness, which is the as-me place, the place where and I'm inviting all of us to live, to recognize that we truly are God in form and walking as God in form. From the Book of Awakening, which I've shared from this book every single Sunday. It was kind of the inspiration for this month of talking about being awake. The Book of Awakening, written by Mark Nepo. On page 414, he talks about this idea of awakening and moving to a place of oneness. He says, perhaps being awake is paying attention to the ongoing moments of life that we so often take for granted. That moment, like conception, like a seed cracking open, that is happening even as you read this, even as you listen to this as I read. Yet as a headlight grows filmed by driving through all kinds of weather, the gift by which we perceive gets covered by experience, and our ability to see is diminished until we clean the gift. This is a lifelong process, one that never ends but always begins. So the care of one's being is imperative and continuous, as simple and as hard as wiping the residue of experience from your mind and heart, letting your original face again shine and light the way. Though, like scratching the middle of your back, we often need others to regain our sense of oneness. And that's, of course, what we are here for, in spiritual community, to help each other and ourselves regain our sense of oneness. Return to our as-me consciousness. And I say return intentionally because that is who we are. We've just forgotten. We've let the muck and the mire of the drive of this life mess up the windshield. And I was reminded as I was reading that in Mark Nepo's book of a class that I taught years and years ago, back 19 years ago, when I was the only instructor here. That's hard for me to believe, but there was a time when it was me. And we had a class that was working its way through the one class that we offered each trimester, and we were moving our way toward, they were moving their way toward practitioner training. It was Lonnie was in that class, and Carrie Sherman was in that class, and Mary Jane Hyde was in that class, and there are others, but those are the three that I can think of at the moment who are in that class that we were just working through. And so one of the classes that I taught, and God said that class was Roots of Science of Mind. And I just have to take a quick aside because after we got more people here to teach, and I think maybe the next person to teach Roots, a founding member here, a founding practitioner here, who's long ago moved away, is here today. George, I want to acknowledge and recognize you. George Wilkinson, right? They're just wave George and his wife Sybil. Just stand up so we can love on you for a second. George is here. We're so happy that you're here. George taught Roots. I gladly, by the way, gave you that class because it wasn't my favorite class to teach, and he loved teaching it and did an amazing job. But I'm saying this because that Mark Nepo quote reminded me of one of the people that we study in Roots. We study 3 people who influenced Ernest Holmes. Come on, students, who are the 3 people we study in Roots? Emma Curtis Hopkins, Thomas Troward, and Ralph Waldo Emerson. There you go. Right. You were close. You were very close. Thomas Troward, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And in case you wonder why those names are on our classrooms, that class building, now you know, we named them after the people who influenced Ernest Holmes. Well, Emma was my favorite of the 3 writers. And something she said, I will never forget. And this was 19 years ago probably that I taught this class. I will never forget this. And so I grabbed the book off the shelf, Scientific Christian Mental Practice, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to find this quote in this big, long book. I remember it being on the left side. Why I remember that, I have no idea, but I did. I remembered it being on the left side of the page, and so I just kind of flipped through the book, and the third place I landed was the quote. I love how God works. It's so good. So this is what Emma had to say, very similar to Mark Nepo now many, many, many years later, because Emma wrote decades ago. This is on page 177 of Scientific Christian Mental Practice. She said, "You may wonder why the truth student," that, by the way, would be us, "who claims to believe the doctrine of no sin, no sickness, no death, in other words, no separation, does not immediately show peaceful, satisfied conditions. Suppose the rain and dust have beaten against the plate glass windows until they are very dirty. Do you think the mere cessation of the rain and dust will make the window panes clean? No. So it is with the mind that is covered with years of habitual imaginations. And by habitual imagination, she means all that negative thinking and those negative emotions and all of that not worthy and all that separation thinking that we have. That's what she means by that. It ceases from imaginations, but practical daily washings of the dust of years must be made. This does not make the imaginations, the mistaken beliefs about life, a reality, but explains how real they seem to us. So it is our job to keep the window pane clean. And just like your car, if you go on a long trip, you start out with a clean windshield, don't you? I mean, don't we usually start out, we get gas, and we usually clean our windshield before we head off on a trip. And it's not too long before what happens? Splat, 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 right? The window gets messed up again, and you have to clean it off again. That's what we're about. That's our spiritual journey, is cleaning off that window so God as us, as you, as me, can shine through. Meister Eckhart, who was an amazing mystic in the many millennia ago, once said that the spiritual journey is not one of addition, but one of subtraction. It's taking away the stuff that doesn't belong there. And I ran across this quote the other day, which is absolutely beautiful, from a 20th century Indian mystic guru and spiritual teacher, Osho. I've never heard of Osho. Some of you are shaking your head, you know. But listen to this. Drop the idea of becoming someone, because you are already a masterpiece. You cannot be improved. You have only to come to it, to know it, to realize it. And that comes by the washing away of whatever is standing in the way of coming to it, realizing it, and knowing it. So what do you think your life would look like if you lived as God? Well, you would say, well, I would walk on water. Yeah, good, great, absolutely. And then your mind is going to go, but since I can't do that, there it is, then I must not be living as God. I want to share another passage from Ernest that I ran across this morning as I was finding a passage to read to you. And again, this is another one like, when did this get put in there? I've never read this before, but here it is. It's on page 219. And he says, do not let anyone do this or that to you, but I'm going to say, don't let anyone, including yourself, do this to you. So he says, do not let anyone discourage or belittle your efforts by asking, why don't you walk on water like Jesus did? Do not be sidetracked by any of these futile suggestions, these mental obstructions, which an unbeliever, could be us, which an unbeliever would seek to throw in your path. If we had the understanding which Jesus had, we would be able to walk on water. I am not at all confused by the fact that we do not do this today. Someday one will come along who knows again how to walk over water. We are probably on the verge of a great spiritual awakening. And I will take the word probably out of that. We are on the verge of a great spiritual awakening. So just because you can't walk on water yet doesn't mean that you can't live as me. And I want to give you just a little story. I've shared this little story before, but it's so beautiful. It just has to be shared again today. It's a story of a little boy who comes to a New Thought church and is learning about God as me and learning to see God in himself and God in others. And he just decides he wants to have an experience of God. And he decides in this particular day that he's going to go to the park to do that. So he packs rations for himself. And the way the original story went was he packed Twinkies and root beer, but I'm going to make it a little healthier. So he packed, organic juice and carrots. How's that? So he packed organic juice and carrots, and he went to the park. And there are ducks and birds and all sorts of, things, animals and things there, but not too many people. But there was one little old lady sitting on a bench all by herself. Oh, he decided to go sit next to her, on the other end of the bench. So she's here and he's here. And he just sat down. He looked at her and they smiled, and that was it. And they just sat. And every now and then she would throw out some breadcrumbs and the ducks would come around and she would feed them. he decided that he was hungry. He got hungry, so he reached in his bag and he got a carrot and he started chomping on a carrot, and he thought to himself, she might be hungry too. So he reached in his bag and he handed her a carrot. She took it, didn't say a word, but gave him this big, beautiful smile. And they just sat there munching on their carrots. After a little bit longer, he got hungry again. He reached out, got another carrot, thought maybe, well, if I'm hungry, maybe she's hungry too. So he got her another carrot. She took it, smiled at him, big, beautiful smile. A little bit later, he got thirsty, so he took out his little juice box. Thought, well, she might be thirsty too. So he had another one. He took it out and gave it to her, big, beautiful smile. And they just sat there all afternoon, crunching on carrots, eating juice box, drinking from the juice box, and now and again feeding the ducks, and just sitting there. Started to get dark, so he knew he had to get home. He went home, and his mom says, oh my gosh, you've been gone for so long. Where have you been? What did you do today? He said, I went to the park, and I sat with God. And she has the most beautiful smile. Same time, the elderly woman went home. She lived with her adult son. And her son said, Mom, you've been gone all day. Where the heck have you been? You look gorgeous. You look radiant. What happened? She said, I've been in the park, and I met God. And he's a lot younger than I expected. Those were as-me moments. Those were sweet and precious as-me moments. Two people being fully present to the moment, being fully present to who they are, being fully with each other. That is as-me. That is what it is ours to do. So I want us to have an experience of answering those questions that I've been posing all month. And I'm going to pose them again in a bit of a vision, kind of an adapted visioning. Visioning is one of the beautiful sacred 7 practices that we teach in our classes. And we do it all the time. And I'm going to invite you to do this for yourself. So I'm going to give you instructions first, and then we'll move into it. So in the pew pocket in front of you, there's a card. We use these wonderful cards. They're the What Would You Love cards. We had them created and donated to the church by Alan Rogerson. We thank you, Alan, for the gift of the cards. So there's a card and an envelope. Let's just take care of the detail first. Why don't you write your name, address, full mailing address on the outside of the envelope. Everybody have one? And pens. There are pens in the pew pockets in front of you. Or if you don't have one, check with the God being next to you, because they might have a pen that they would be happy to loan you. So put your name, address on the envelope. You need something, Kathleen, babe? Here you go. We got it. Diana's getting it for you. Diana's getting it for you. Here she comes. Thank you. Anybody else need anything? Do you need anything at all? We're here to provide. What do you... Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to invite you into in just a moment, after you finish writing your name on the envelope, I will say those questions again. Now, you don't have to answer each one of them individually, but just answer them collectively. And once I say them and say a few more words, but I'll be quiet. So you can write. Write down whatever you want to write that comes to you, whether it comes in complete sentences or one word, whether it comes in a picture or a color or a feeling. Record in whatever way. No one will see this but you, only you. So record it in whatever way works for you. All right? Does that make sense? Any questions about it? Yes. What we're going to do? Yes. I'm going to lead you through some questions. I'm going to lead you through. And then you're just going to write down whatever comes for you. And then when you're ready, but don't do it right away, because I have some questions after the first one, we'll put it in the envelope, and then we'll do something else with it. All right. So for the moment, close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath. Oh, how lovely we'll be supported in this gorgeous harp. Put your pen down for a moment, because I just want you to be with these questions. And if you think of something and you're worried about retaining it, just know that you do retain exactly what you need to, so that you can write it down when it's time. So usually in visioning, we say, what is God's highest idea for, and we fill in the blank. How I'm going to do this one is, what is God's highest idea for you in 2017 as you are fully and completely awake and present to the life that you have right now? What is God's highest vision for your life in 2017 when you are fully awake and fully present to who you are in every moment? To what brings you joy in the moment? When you are fully awake and present to the life you are creating through your thoughts and your feelings and your words? What is the highest vision or intention for 2017 as you are fully present and awake to the presence of God's grace as your life? And what is your life like as you are fully and completely present, even in the middle of a wake, in the middle of turbulence, of a challenge? What is your life like? Breathe that in and allow Spirit to answer, the Spirit of you, the God that is you. Let your human brain, your human mind hear what the God of your being has to say. And write whatever feels appropriate for you to write. What is 2017 like as you are fully present and awake? Breathe, be available, receive. I have another question to ask you, so don't seal your envelope yet. What does your life look like? Awake and available. What quality or qualities of God are you expressing as you are awake and present? That's the next question. What qualities of God are you expressing as you are awake and present? Write those down. And a final question to answer is what, if anything, must be released in order for you to express these qualities, in order for you to live fully awake, in order for this vision, this intention to be made manifest through your life. What must be released? What needs to be washed off of the windshield of your heart and of your mind? And once you feel complete with all of that, then place your card in the envelope. And when you are ready, place your card to your heart. God's presence, God's divine love, wisdom, intelligence are here and now, in this very moment, in this very room. The one life that is God, the one life that is perfect, is here, because it is here as me and as each and every one of us. God is in this room. God as me and each and every one of us. So I speak my word now into God's perfect, infallible law for each of us here today, knowing that everything that has been placed on this card is already done in mind, is already done in the invisible. And I proclaim and know that we are open and receptive vehicles through which these visions and intentions are manifest in this world of form in this year. Whatever was written down to be released is already released. Whatever God qualities were recorded to be expressed, they are already expressed. And the life, the intention of being fully present and fully awake in 2017 is already done. I proclaim this, and in this proclamation I celebrate it because I know it is so. And I am so grateful to have and to be in community with these people here today who are so awake. And I, with excitement and enthusiasm, look forward to the incredible work we do in the world together this year. So I am grateful, deeply grateful. I call it good. Oh, so very, very good. And with that, I release this treatment, this beautiful prayer, into the law of God, and let it be. And in the words of the ancient prayer, I seal this prayer in faith, in trust, and in truth. And so it is.